Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show. I am Patrick Daugherty, joined by Denny Carter and Kyle Dvorchak. We are here to preview the entire Week 10 slate. We are into double digits now, guys. The season, I was going to say it's in the stretch run. It's actually only half over. Hopefully that doesn't make you cry. Are you triggered?
I'm a little.
Yeah,
I'm always a little triggered.
It's always that weird disconnect about all of our listeners and football fans. Season can never be too long for them. When you're in the industry, it quickly becomes a first world problem of, another 9 weeks, That's great. I love it. I love it. Personally, I love it.
A 3,000 word regression piece. I'll do it. I'll do it 18 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I'm still having fun, and we're gonna.
I am too. I actually really enjoy writing.
We all do. It's a really, really great time. It's gonna be a great time. We're talking about the 49ers at the Jaguars, the Texans at the Bengals, and seeing which receivers might be healthy for the Bengals. The Lions at the Chargers, which will undoubtedly be a Lions home game. Their fans have been traveling shockingly well this year. Atlanta at the Cardinals, the return of Kyler Murray. We're going to hit on all the week's biggest storylines. And speaking of health, Denny wanted me, he thought I needed to make an injury report announcement. I have been cleared to resume laughing.
That's right.
After 3 weeks of a chest infection, you can now make me laugh again on the show.
It was a major problem. It was a problem for the team. You know, we tried to get the medical staff to work on you several times, and nothing was working. And eventually, you know, I felt bad about making you laugh. So I was trying not to make you laugh, and I would almost wince when you would laugh because it sounded so uncomfortable. So
we even called in a specialist. We called in a lung doctor, I believe, from Los Angeles, had previously worked with the Chargers, and that seemed to brighten things up right before you even saw him. You were right as rain.
Come on. Oh, yeah, come on. They stuck it. He accidentally put it in my heart. That made me feel really weird for a few days. The shot of prednisone that an unnamed former team doctor injected directly into my heart.
That wasn't the best move, but hey, you know, we were willing to try anything to get you 100%. I'm glad you're all the way back. You're able to laugh without wheezing and almost passing out.
Yeah, when they claimed I was in Quebec City, I was actually on a gurney after getting the incorrect shot, and I'm just happy to be alive.
Things have been going well for Pat.
No. I had a post-viral asthmatic infection. We're just very, very happy to be laughing again. Humor is legal. We're bringing it back. Free speech, things of that nature. I had one more joke I wanted to make, and I can't remember what it was. I was trying to filibuster.
Well, I will say it's good that you're okay. You're healthy now. Because your next sickness is 2 weeks away.
Less than that. Come on. Let's be real. You know me.
10 days.
You met my kids. You see how much these kids touch their face? You think it'll be 2 weeks? You think that's funny to say it's going to be 2 weeks?
No, I don't.
It's going to be a lot sooner than 2 weeks, but we digress. The Jacksonville Jaguars and San Francisco 49ers come off by to a 45.5 total affair in Duval, Florida, Kyle. We will get to Brock Purdy's recent struggles in just a second, but we begin with the Jags' ever-frustrating receiver core, where Zay Jones has finally resumed practicing and seems set to rejoin the mix on Sunday. What should fantasy managers expect from this group coming out of the open date? Jaguars 6-2, 49ers 5-3.
Yeah, it'll be his first game back after missing a few games, returning for one false start, re-aggravating it, and then missing games before that. So it's not like you're getting him in your starting lineup yet. I guess the thing I would look out for, I'm not sure if we see this week. It's possible they ramp him up like a 50% route rate this week. But going forward, in week 1, he ran 94% of the routes, 23% of the team's targets went his way. And in turn, Christian Kirk was the one who left the field 66% of the routes, only out there for 2/3. Yeah. And anytime they moved out of 3 wide, it was Kirk. Now, do they stick with that after seeing Kirk play pretty well? I think in my opinion, at least he's exceeded my expectations playing alongside Calvin Ridley. Maybe they don't stick with that, but that's going to be sort of the canary in the coal mine for me is if we see Kirk's routes drop because Zay Jones is back, that'll be a pretty big red flag going forward. I don't know if we see it, but I think it's one of the more important storylines to watch in this game.
It really, really is. And going to tell the tale of the second half of the fantasy season for 2 really important players in Calvin Ridley and Christian Kirk. Danny, do you have any thoughts to add there? You seem like you were maybe thinking, or do you want me to move on?
Just real quick, I mentioned in the funnel defense report, which you can find on the site right now, that the Niners have become a pretty extreme pass funnel. it could force some pass volume for the Jaguars, even though Jacksonville has been very balanced all season. I particularly like that for Evan Ingram. You can check it out.
The 49ers tried to address that, but they didn't do it by adding bodies in the secondary. They did it by adding pass rusher.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
What happens there? With the 49ers, Brock Purdy was playing genuinely bad football heading into their open date. He was also concussed and missing Deebo Samuel, missing Trent Williams. Trent Williams has yet to resume practicing, but what do you think are fair expectations for Brock Purdy coming out of the bye, rested and refreshed, and getting Deebo Samuel back?
It's important. I mean, obviously Deebo is very important to how this offense operates, how many times Brock Purdy, whoever's under center for San Francisco, can dump it off and gain a bunch of yards with yards after the catch.
Were you just trying to remember Brock Purdy's name?
I was trying to think of all the quarterbacks who have succeeded in this system, and
too many.
A lot.
It's like literally anyone can do it. But anyway, we digress. Brock Purdy's good. He's good. I don't know. I never said he's bad.
But guys, look, I was actually a little bit surprised by how bad of a matchup this is. The Jaguars are allowing the 4th lowest EPA per drop back on the season and the 6th lowest completion rate over expected. They are a little bit of a pass funnel, and they don't pressure the quarterback all that much. The 5th lowest pressure rate in the league, and Purdy has been pretty good without pressure. But it's not. I don't know. It's not a gimme. It's not a gimme. I think you're starting him, but it's not a great matchup.
Well, especially without Trent Williams. Maybe he'll return to practice, but he's not practicing. He wasn't practicing on Wednesday, which is never a good sign coming out of a bye.
Right.
You're at least going to be limited if you're going to play coming out of the bye. Is it even fair to say Brock Purdy was playing bad? I think he had more turnovers and touchdowns back-to-back games. Correct, Kyle?
Yeah, I think that's correct. But I will say I wrote this up in 32 stats a few weeks ago because they're coming off bye, so it would have been 2 weeks ago now. But he was like 15th in EPA per play over that stretch of, I think it was 3 or 4 poor, quote, games. He didn't have good counting stats. The team, I think, lost like 3 in a row in that stretch.
They did.
But if your floor of like, oh, this is the bad stretch, right? Maybe it gets worse, but so far that looks like the bad stretch, is still being a top 15 quarterback in efficiency. Say what you will for how that efficiency happens. Like, obviously the scheme is helping him. But as an offense, just ignoring the player talent evaluation, as an offense, if your floor is like top 15 in EPA per play through the air, it's a pretty good floor to have.
But if that's his actual floor, was he really top 15? He had more. I think he had more turnovers than touchdowns 3 games in a row.
He was running a little bit, and he was doing a really good job avoiding sacks over that stretch. Still, the turnovers were an issue. That's what prevented him from being the typical, like, how the hell is this dude top 3 in EPA when you watch him play? That's what, stopped him from getting back there. But he wasn't taking sacks and he was running a little bit. So, and quarterback running is generally efficient. So yeah, I mean, that kind of looks like the floor, right? Because you watch him, you're like, yeah, this wasn't a good stretch of games. I don't think he's going to go out there and make horrific mistakes. Like, there's not another level to me that it goes down. I mean,
Denny, you look like you want to praise Brock Purdy too. I mean, we used to be a country, so on and so forth. But did you want to praise Brock Purdy? It looked like you had something to say.
It all depends on game script for this guy. Like, if he has to drop back in obvious pass first situations, it's Jover. Like, he can't thrive in that. But if the defense is left guessing, if the Niners have the lead, just like his grandfather Jimmy Garoppolo, Brock Purdy, he will do well. Like that's pretty much a guarantee. So he is game script dependent. I mean, the likelihood is that the Niners have good game script here, but we thought that about the last 2 games.
Yes, a quote literally lost the Vikings, Brock Purdy. So we'll see about that. And Jimmy Garoppolo would look really good in like Depression era black and white photos. He could be Brock Purdy's grandfather. To put a bow on this game, Kyle, George Kittle, it's been pretty simple. At least it has seemed simple. When both Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel are healthy, he does, quote, literally nothing in fantasy. When one of them are injured, he's a pretty elite tight end one. They're both healthy this week. What can we expect from George Kittle?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing looking at Kittle is a lot of or at least some of the advanced metrics, especially like ESPN's open score and their overall rating, still really like him. But then you look at the actual production and he's on pace for either career low or second lows in basically all efficiency and most counting stats. But the fact that the sort of more agnostic stats are saying he's still really good. And even still, like, when I say he's not like up to his usual standards, he was like literally the best stretch of tight end seasons ever by efficiency from, I think, 2018 to 2020. Now he's just your run-of-the-mill, very good tight end. He's not in the Travis Kelce tier this year or the last year. And I think that seems to me to be mostly a product of what you pointed out, that they have so many talented players on this team at running back, at receiver 2. They have 2 good receivers to the point where I don't know which one is the receiver 1. He still seems to be George Kittle. He's second in yards per route run, which it's just the fact that he used to be first by a wide mile. He was like Julio Jones-esque at his position. He's probably not there anymore. I think it's a combination of he's getting older. He's 3 years removed from that breakout, that stretch of breakout season, which began in 2018, and there's more competition. So confluence of factors, I still think he's really elite, but it is going to be the most troughs and mountain peaks season we'll ever see from him, probably, at least to this point in his career.
You say we don't know who'll be the number 1 because we never do. There is the narrative that Deebo eats against zone. Brandon Aiyuk eats against man coverage. The Jags play a lot of zone. So if you're looking for clues, I just gave you one. But I ranked Aiyuk higher still because Deebo's been hurt a lot and his production of scattershot even before the injury. The confounding Minnesota Vikings welcome in Josh Dobbs as their every week starter against the Saints, Denny Carter. At the risk of beating a dead horse, it's a topic we talked about all week and last week. What can we reasonably expect from this Vikings offense with Josh Dobbs under center, who I believe was a QB1 in week 9, based a large part on the fact he had 7 rushes for 66 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, and that rushing it didn't come out of nowhere. He has had, I talked about on the Tuesday show, multiple games with over 5 rushing attempts this season, and that's awesome. Like if you can get like the equivalent of a touchdown for fantasy points from a quarterback's rushing, like you're in business floor wise, So I think that he can work out in deeper leagues, definitely, and you're pretty psyched to get him probably in super flex if you're down bad at quarterback. And then as far as like the pass catchers, Hawkinson 33% target share, Addison 19% target share last week. That's exactly how it was with Cousins, just a little less volume. So I do think the Hawkinson trade rolls on.
Real quick,
where do
Kyle,
you guys think?
Sounds like Kirk Cousins' system quarterback. Continue.
He's plays well in the system. But
no, I am not. He's not a system quarterback.
He knows it. He knows the system.
As much as I want to drag Kirk, not a system quarterback.
Where do you guys think Josh Dobbs ranks amongst quarterbacks in rushing yards?
This season, he ranks 4th. Yeah,
second.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it helps that he hasn't had a bye yet, so a lot of guys probably could catch him with an extra game. A lot of guys could have caught him if healthy. He's second among quarterbacks in rushing yards, and he's third, I believe, in designed quarterback rush attempts too. So his coaches, it's not like fluky. Oh, he's pressured and he scrambles a lot. Quarterbacks also recognize his athleticism. So like I think like Denny said, I don't even know if you have to be that deep because as you pointed out, he's just picking up a free passing touchdown like nearly every week.
And if you look further into the metrics, you'll see Josh Dobbs is first in dog level. So
the dog level for being so smart. He has really high dog levels. Yeah. It's pretty insane.
I know the Raiders wanted to have a transfusion to get some of that dog level into Jimmy G.
Come on, man. Those are the most dangerous athletes in the world, though. The ones that match dog levels with like football IQ.
Yes.
Those guys are uncontainable. Josh Dobbs looks like he maybe needed a chance sooner. Kyle, I couldn't help but notice you writing about Chris Olave in your 32 Facts article. Still dominating air yards, dominating target share. He got a touchdown finally last week. The targets floor has stayed nice. The ceiling has disappeared, though, especially since the Derek Carr shoulder injury. Not that it's because of the shoulder injury still. But what's the current cope line with Chris Olave? How are we doing this? How are we dealing with this?
They throw that boy the ball a lot, and sometimes he does the thing, and sometimes he doesn't the thing. I generally think he's pretty good because, as I've said before, earning targets, earning air yards, and doing them at a high proportion of your team's opportunities is a talent stat. Guys, I mean, it's partially a talent relative to the rest of your team stat, but like there are worse receiving trios in the league. It's not like he's playing against no one. He is dominating his team's air yards. He's got 30% of the team's air yards in every single game. Second in the NFL in total air yards, top 10 in targets. Guys like this tend to blow up and do it often. I'm betting on that guy most weeks.
Absolutely.
Floor be damned. Because, yeah, the floor is probably low. Because it's tons of, like, outside, on the boundary targets, not a ton schemed over the middle. But it's so much of that work that I don't care that it could be better. Like, I think they could scheme more work over the middle of the field. but we're working with what we have, and we still have a lot of air yards, baby.
Yeah, you hear that, Rich Rebar? We're coming. We're coming. We're coming. We're coming.
By the way, Derek Carr, second in the NFL in air yards thrown this year.
He's chucking it.
He's converting none of them, but he's throwing it deep. Okay. And someone told me online, they said, when you're evaluating Chris Olave's fantasy prospects, you got to make room for that boy's nice. And
he's sick with it.
And he's nice. He's getting a lot of those targets. One day, I promise you, he's going to score 35 points in your lineup.
It's going to happen. Denny, per our current mediation agreement and our ongoing legal saga, I am required to let you talk about Taysom Hill, quote, cooking. Tell the audience about what's going on with Taysom.
I appreciate that. And my lawyers will be in touch. So look, Taysom is the red zone quarterback now for the Saints. Okay.
I laughed. I had an involuntary laugh, but it is true.
So Derek Carr, he exits the game. He's benched. when the team gets near the end zone. And so basically what you have fantasy wise, you have Derek Carr, his floor and his ceiling are exactly 15 fantasy points.
I wrote that in my article this week too. There is no difference between his floor and ceiling. It's crazy.
That's it. Like he can't get past that, and he also can't go under that. So that's nice.
There is a Georgia Tech 2010 coach, and all of the military schools coaches are watching Taysom Hill subbed in as the red zone quarterback and just weeping tears of joy. They find it so beautiful.
And so last week Taysom had 11 rushes and 4 catches on 5 targets. Okay, like. I'm sorry, guys. Look, that workload in itself is more valuable than Travis Kelce's role in the Kansas City offense.
Man, I don't know if I'm legally allowed to let you go that far.
And he occasionally throws the ball in the red zone and in the green zone. No, give me a break. This is the tight end 1.
I believe he's the tight end 2 over the past month and has been ascending even further. I think not hyperbole. Yeah.
I mean, I think that there's a possibility where the rest of the season, the second half of the season, he is the tight end 1 overall.
His usage changes so quickly that's the only thing that makes me hesitant to commit to it.
If it changes it, then it's over. Okay. But it's been relatively consistent and the Saints seem very married to this idea that Taysom needs to come in and he needs to operate this offense, and it's been very successful, guys.
That's the problem. Is it works? It actually
works.
Generally works. He's the most efficient. If you call him a running back, he's always the most efficient running back. But he's also a good pass catcher. The only thing is, don't let him throw a pass from the 50. A red zone pop pass, sure.
Horrible.
Don't throw a pass from the 50, Taysom. Other than that, it really works, and it works in the red zone, so it shouldn't go anywhere. Maybe it'll morph. Maybe it'll be more catches in some weeks, more carries in some weeks, a pass or two. But it works in the red zone, so it's not going away in its entirety.
21 rushing attempts for Taysom Hill in the red zone. That's the 10th most among all players in the NFL. That's just so valuable. It's so valuable. My only regret in fantasy this year is that I don't have more Taysom. I have Taysom almost everywhere. I should have had him literally everywhere. I don't know why not.
Denny wins again. It works for Taysom in the red zone. It's kind of never worked for Derek Carr in the red zone.
No.
And by the way, Kyle, his name is Paul Johnson. Put some respect on his name, the former Georgia Tech coach.
Wait, do you actually know that that's a former Georgia Tech coach?
No, he's a legend. And we will be right back after this. All eyes will be on Las Vegas Sunday evening. You don't want to miss a matchup between stars Sauce Gardner and Devontae Adams as the New York Football Jets travel to the desert to face the Raiders. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock. And don't forget, find all your favorite NBC sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. We should be talking about the Jets game right now, but I didn't sequence the podcast that way. So we're not. We're going to talk about that later on NBC. Right now, we are talking about the Patriots and Colts arriving in Frankfurt with the collapsing Patriots operating as 1.5-point road underdogs, I guess, Kyle. I saw you write this week that you believe Jonathan Taylor and the takeover has finally happened in the Colts backfield. Fact or fiction?
Yeah, I mean, if it looks anything like it did last week, it's 100% fact. He saw 75% of the team's snaps, 62% of the team's carries, and ran a route on 3/4 of the team's passing plays. Most importantly, saw the teams only carry inside the 5-yard line. I mean, that's like high-end RB1 numbers. 75% of the snaps is something we talked about. Like, Jahmyr Gibbs just can't do that. Like, because, a few weeks ago, he played every snap. Most guys don't play every snap. Getting up to 75 puts you near the top of the league. Even if this doesn't quite hold, they mix Zack Moss in a little more. This is what like good RB1 numbers would look like. And then on top of that, you layer in the fact that he's probably one of the more talented running backs in the NFL. I mean, I'm going to have him ranked as like a top 6 running back. The only reason to not rank him as like a top 3, 4, 5 is that Moss is good. And maybe last week was a little fluky. I think that's an acceptable risk to factor in because Moss has been really good this year. At some point, the fact that they signed Taylor and brought him back and he's really good and they have both money and draft capital invested in him, that has to trump Moss. That's what it looks like. But I'll say Moss like deserves some carries per week. Barely got him last week, but top 6 is like the floor of where I'd rank him. Pat, I really want to rank him like top 3 because I drafted a lot of those guys.
I do too. I think I currently have RB7. I thought about going as high as RB4. Currently
do it
out at RB7.
Do it.
Denny will never quote Trump Moss, by the way. Denny, with Josh Downs trending toward inactive, I don't know what his practice status was on Thursday. He did not practice on Wednesday after departing Sunday's game. I've seen some people ranking Michael Pittman as a wide receiver 1. Mm-hmm. Feels a little fanciful to me, even though he's one of the ultimate PPR cash registers. He's had no upside whatsoever. How do you assess the Michael Pittman odds for week 10 if Josh Downs is sidelined?
I mean, I kind of like him as a top 12 option just based on like nowhere else to go. I mean, what are they going to do? Like pepper Alec Pierce with targets or Isaiah McKenzie? McKenzie, by the way, would take the slot role most likely. So I mean, if you take Downs out of this lineup, you're taking out 21% of the air yards and 18% of the targets on the season. Pitts last week with Josh Downs out most of the game, Pitts had 32% of the targets for the Colts and 41% of the air yards. I mean, that's insane. That's like an insane opportunity workload, a profile for Pittman. He's second in the league with 15 red zone targets, and he is by far the primary red zone guy for the team. So he has some touchdown upside.
He scored a touchdown? He has that many red zone targets? I feel like this guy's like 1 touchdown.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work, but he does get a lot of chances in the red zone.
He has 3 apparently, by the way.
So and the Patriots. By the way, the matchup is pretty good. Patriots are allowing the 5th highest EPA per drop back and are a little bit of a pass funnel. So yeah, I mean, man, it's wheels up for Pittman.
It's a real good matchup. J.C. Jackson has been told, "quote he can't go to Germany." By the Patriots. So
he tried to go.
Things are looking real. Yeah, it was a real ugly scene at the airport. Bill Belichick had taken his passport, and he was not allowed to go to Frankfurt. Kyle, I just wrote in the game notes, Pats, Lowell. Not really sure what else to say about them. Is there anything to care about whatsoever in this offense?
I mean, you could. No, who cares? No, I mean, go ahead, pick up Demario Douglas and enjoy your no more, no less than 8 PPR points. Hunter Henry, no more, no less than like 7 PPR points. Either of them score, sure, they get over that. But like, they've got some guys who are out there, and that's worth some PPR points, and that's all I'm going to say about this team.
Ramondre Stevenson's best game of the season. He still had 9 carries. Like, things are just real bad. Denny, I thought you had a thought. But
yeah, I did.
Just lay it on us. Come on.
Yeah, I'll lay it on you. I'm almost embarrassed to include the Colts in my funnel defense report, but yeah, they're in there because they're such a crazy, insane run funnel that I think that the Patriots could actually take advantage of that. And Ramondre has a big edge in high value touches over the past couple weeks. So, hey, you're starting them. I think you got to just throw them in there. And it's not a bad spot. If the game script is okay, I could see Ramondre seeing something crazy like 13 rushing attempts.
That would be nice. They have been phasing out Ezekiel Elliott. Like, just as quickly as they phased him in, they have begun to phase him out because he's just not been good this year. The Bengals and Texans meet up in Cincinnati with it being unclear just who might be in Joe Burrow's receiver core, Denny. Jamar Chase has a back injury. T. Higgins injured his hamstring in Wednesday's practice. Highly unideal. What would be the Bengals' offensive outlook with or without one or both stars? Jamar Chase seems closer to playing than T. Higgins does at this point. Incomplete information, but what do we do with that incomplete information?
Really tough break. I mean, T. Higgins really came through last week for those hanging on for dear life and continuing to start him. He converted 88% of his air yards last week, which is way above his season high rate or his season long rate of 28%. So it actually happened last week, and now he's hurt, and that stings. So I guess Trenton Irwin would be the guy who gets more playing time if Higgins is out. Probably a few more looks for Tyler Boyd in the slot. Maybe a little bit more run heavy with Joe Mixon. And by the way, the Houston run defense has gotten pretty bad of late. So the whole Houston defense is bad. Like at full strength, this Bengals offense should be able to easily fall out of bed, and Burrow puts up 300 yards and 4 touchdowns against these guys. So I do like this game from a fantasy standpoint. The environment should be pretty good here. Irwin, I guess maybe Irv Smith mixes in, although the Bengals have this horrible 3-way tight end rotation. I mean, God, it's just really ugly. Irwin would be the guy in deeper leagues who, if you want to pick him up in case Higgins is out.
If they're out both, Andre Iosifas, the rookie from Princeton, like a little bit of a burner. I think he has a touchdown this year. Probably only if they're out both of those guys, though, because as you pointed out, Denny, Irwin earlier this season functioned as a stand-in, a scarecrow stand-in for T. Higgins. So actually, I think he had a decent game there. I make fun of him, but I actually think he had a decent game in terms of targets and catches. So he's definitely worth a pickup. And I literally picked up Iosifas in a league where I am just down horrific, even though I'm doing well. It's the bye week apocalypse for my team because I drafted from all the good teams who are out this week.
Apparently so. I was going to say.
Yeah.
By the way, could you imagine being world-class fast and also a Princeton grad, huh? Real cool.
By the way,
Andre, leave some for the rest of us. Sorry.
Yeah, please. I'd like to be fast. Trenton Irwin caught 8 of 10 targets for 60 yards last time T. Higgins was out. So he has that going for him.
Kyle, is there any chance the Texans run back their insanely pass-heavy approach against the Bengals defense that is a lot better than Tampa's defense? But you just think after it worked so well last week, they might try to do this more often and not abandon the hopeless running game they had going before week 9?
Yeah, I mean, there were some positive signs last week. Specifically, their run rate on early downs finally dropped. It was over 50%, just barely. It was over 50%. And they're nearly the worst team in the NFL at running, and especially on early downs. It's completely useless for them. And then last week, they boosted that pass rate on first and second down to 63%. I think it was second or third highest on the week. And they were incredible at it. No kidding. CJ Stroud has been great. Let him pass on early downs. Your drives will go better. That's exactly what happened. But I always hesitate to read too much into a one-game blip when the previous 8 games made it very clear that they want to be, quote, balanced. And even for their overall passing volume last week, they only had a plus 4% pass rate over expected. That's good. It's better than where it was throughout the year, but it was mostly the crazy game environment that promoted the passing volume. Yeah. Not quite as much as a philosophical change, but the early down stuff was good. And that's what we need to see. Stop running with Devin Singletary. And when Dameon Pierce comes back, don't run it with him either. You have CJ Stroud. Use him.
Would be quite nice. We would be remiss to not mention Nico Collins. We can't tell how hurt he is. He's got a calf injury. Didn't practice Wednesday. Seemed like he was not practicing on Thursday. There was some moderate confusion there. So just be on the lookout.
I think Nico Collins practiced Wednesday. He wasn't out there for the open portion of practice. Supposedly
he was listed as DNP. It's very confusing. He was. Zach and I were working through some blurbs, by the way. Extremely confusing what is going on with Nico Collins. But he is injured in some way and not practicing in some way.
The reporters initially listed him. They said he wasn't out there, wasn't practicing. Then at some point in the day, they said he was limited. And then once the injury report came out, I guess they moved him back to DNP because there were reports. We have 3 blurbs on it now, I think.
But the Texans, by the way, have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 24 players in injury report, literally half the team.
Yeah, it's a bunch of
everything okay players in Houston?
They're out out. We'll see, but they could be out with a lot of defenders, which for a defense that already wasn't that good would make them such a great matchup for the Bengals, which is part of the reason that like Irwin, Iosivas are not bad pickups, because if they get out there, this is a great matchup. And Joe Burrow is still their quarterback.
Yes.
But really quick, is Noah Brown, is he like ahead of Tank Dell, or is he not? What's going on between Noah Brown and Tank Dell?
I don't think he's ahead of him. But this is another great spot for both Dalton Schultz and Noah Brown, who run almost all of their routes from the slot. The Bengals are giving up the third highest target rate to slot receivers. And so we saw that last week. But the Bucs are giving tons of slot production, but giving up tons of slot production. We saw Brown go off. I mean, look, Brown's not going to catch like long touchdowns every week, obviously, but he is a solid part of 3 receiver sets for the Bengals. They run those sets quite often. And Schultz, man, Schultz has become like an elite option in this offense.
Yeah, Denny laid out the passing attack well. The Noah Brown volume last week wasn't, at least in terms of his cut of the team's volume, wasn't great. A 15% target share, a 14% air yard share. Like those normally wouldn't really result in anything, but as Denny pointed out, 75, I think, yard touchdown really tends to juice the numbers. Also, it is hilarious to watch Noah Brown, who's like a bigger dude. I looked up, he's like 216 pounds, go out there and play big slot, while Tank Dell, who's like functionally my size, is on the outside. And they both crushed in those exact roles last week. Players are all their own unique beasts.
All my free summer flyers and Cole Kmet and Dalton Schultz finally paying off for my 3 and 6 teams. Really, really amazing stuff. The Cleveland Browns and Baltimore Ravens have arguably the 2 best defenses in the entire league, and they're meeting up in Baltimore with the Ravens getting 6 points as decisive home favorites, Kyle. The Browns appeared on their way offensively last Sunday, but will this be too difficult of a game environment for the Browns to get home in fantasy?
Yeah, I don't play like non-top 5 quarterbacks against the Ravens, and I don't really do that against the Browns either. But I'm going to throw Lamar Jackson into the top 5 conversation, especially as far as fantasy is concerned. But no, I mean, the Ravens have been stone cold killers this year on defense. They're top 2 in points, yards, and EPA per play allowed. The most the team has thrown on them for is 253 yards. And it was all garbage time from Jared Goff a few weeks ago. Like after that, the next one is, I think, 218. They're incredible. They're just really hard to beat. And sure, if I was confident that Deshaun Watson was who the Browns paid for, yeah, I'd probably be playing that guy. He's got like 2 good games this year. I'm not that confident yet that he is a guy who's capable of beating one of the 2 defenses this year that really strike fear into like the fantasy managers' hearts.
And we got this report, I think on Thursday. Yeah, on Thursday, that Deshaun Watson said he is his shoulder remains, quote, a work in progress. He's still getting it as strong as possible. Heading into week 10. And I think we see that in the film. I've been grinding tape, guys, Browns tape, and I'm seeing some weird looking throws from Watson.
They should treat him like a pitcher. Like he gets a rotation. He comes in for every few starts. Let the backup come in and get shelled in this one because it's a bad matchup. I mean, it's how the Cardinals treated Clayton Tune, right?
Clayton
Let
Tune
him get
available.
Yep.
There were some really weird looking throws from Deshaun Watson last week. You were not kidding, Denny. Keaton Mitchell was one of the ads of the week. He had only 1 touch all year heading into week 9. 9 carries, 138 yards, and a touchdown against the very sorry Seahawks. It was not all in garbage time. He had a 60-yard run. He had a 40-yard run against the defense that is not nearly as good as the Browns is. What are realistic expectations for waiver wire hero Keaton Mitchell?
Look, if he sees 10 touches, that'll be amazing. I don't really see that in his range of outcomes. I will say the following: if you want to paint a positive picture for Keaton Mitchell coming into this week, it's that the Browns are by far the most extreme run funnel defense in the league over the season and over the past month. Okay, this is basically, it's not because the Browns are being gashed on the ground, although I have something on that in a second. It's because teams are terrified of Myles Garrett, and they just don't see the point in dropping back and having this pass rush led by Garrett destroy their quarterbacks. So, like the Colts tried, if you remember. So I think the Ravens are and they've been very pass heavy on and off this season. I'm sorry, run heavy on and off the season. I think they're likely to do that against Cleveland. That could generate more volume than we're expecting for Edwards, for Keaton Mitchell, maybe a little bit for Justice Hill. And I will say this: the Browns are giving up a good amount of big running plays. Okay, so they're kind of boom or bust, right? So they're either stuffing you at the line or you're ripping off long runs, and that to me describes Keaton Mitchell's game.
Every old school football coach is overjoyed that teams are just, quote, running right at Myles Garrett. That's what you're supposed to do against an elite pass rusher. Just run right at them. Speaking of running, Kyle, anything on the Browns backfield, Jerome Ford seemed to pretty decisively reclaim 1A duties in week 9. Is it as simple as that, or is there anything more lurking in the data?
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much checks out to me. He saw a season high in carry share. It was his second highest route rate of the season, which is really important because there were times where he wasn't running all of the routes. If he's going to operate as the primary passing down back while also getting half plus of the team's carries, that's really strong. I still think the goal line work is up for question because that's something Kareem Hunt was getting, but I don't expect them to score a ton of points in this game anyways. They're on the road against one of the best top 2 defense in the NFL. So getting all the carries, getting a pretty high clip of the routes, it's really all you can hope for from a guy like Ford. So I don't know. I probably won't have him ranked as an RB2 this week solely because of the matchup where I just don't see his team getting him opportunities to find the end zone. But I think in a different matchup, if they were entering this week versus a team that was a lot weaker, he probably would rank as an RB2. It's just a bad spot.
Just a bad spot. The reeling Buffalo Bills greet a rested Broncos team as 7.5-point home favorites. Denny Carter, are we getting any closer to actual concern about this Bills offense? No concern for Josh Allen in fantasy. He continues to print money as the QB1 overall. But are we concerned about this Bills offense? It's been very inconsistent.
It has been a little bit inconsistent, but if you narrow it down to the past, sorry, I'm looking for my notes. Yes, the past 5 weeks, the Bills are third in EPA per play, second in offensive success rate, and they've been pretty good in the red zone, third highest touchdown rate in the red zone. You know, I think actually their defense with injuries and other issues going on, and by the way, they have a ton of defensive injuries coming into this game. Their defense has been putting their offense into bad spots. But overall, this offense, from a fantasy standpoint, I think is clicking along as well as we could hope. Gabe Davis is either like a 0 or a 15-pointer for you.
And, to be clear, that's what we hope for.
Yeah, that was definitely
Never mind. Sorry, never mind. I was trying to gotcha with your own wording. Sorry.
Look, as a 9th round pick or whatever he fell to this year, that's where you're happy with 0 or 20 games.
I guess that's a good point.
And you know, this whole thing where I actually think the Dawson Knox, please get better, Dawson Knox, but his injury has made this offense better because they've gotten Khalil Shakir out there more, and they've gotten what's his face, the rookie tight end,
Mr. Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, just like don't do this stupid 11.5 personnel stuff. Hey, play normal and it works out.
Yeah.
So Shakir and Kincaid. Any doubt that they can keep this going for as long as Dawson Knox aside? And by keep it going for Shakir, we mean like mid-range, low-end wide receiver 4. But it seems like it's going to be sticky, doesn't it?
I really like Shakir. He has a good route rate here. I would say I wrote this in one of my articles this week that I think Shakir is probably a better play than Gabe Davis from a PPR perspective.
Wow. I kind of like to hear that because I got Shakir in a lot of leagues.
You got a 50-50 chance of being right this week, Danny. You're either losing by 30 to Gabe or you're scoring the exact amount of PPR points Shakir gets over Gabe. It's 0 plus his.
If you need 10 points, who are you putting in there?
It might be Shakir.
Yeah.
Kyle, what would you say James Cook does here? I'm getting less clear. The Bills seem less clear on this. We don't know if Leonard Fournette will be active this week. But what in the world would you say James Cook does here?
So on the field, they mark every 10 yards. And when the one that starts with a 2 comes up, get him out of there. But until then, he's really good. He's super efficient. He's top 10 in rush yards over expected, but he's top 10 in success rate as well, as in he's not just the boom bust type of running back. Overall, he's more consistent, but also good. It's just that he does not get end zone touches. He's not used enough in the red zone. And over the past 4 weeks, he hasn't even run a route on half the team's dropbacks in more than one game. So he's a part-time route runner. Still sees a decent amount of carries, but they're relatively low value. He makes the most of them because he's legitimately a good breakaway runner, but he's not only hitting home runs. He still has some consistency, actually really strong amount of consistency for the type of runner he is. The last time he saw a goal line carry was in week 4. Like, that's a killer for fantasy purposes. Man. Touchdowns drive all positions, but especially running back. So it's hard to treat him as like a top 20 back when you're like, I'm locking in 14. They're averaging 6 yards. They're not.
He was held under 10 carries for only the second time all year in week 9 too. I just kind of wondered if they were beginning the transition not away from James Cook. Like, he's not gonna be like phased out of the offense, but they're getting ready for Lenny time, basically. And
it seems like it. It does.
It just kind of feel that way, which, really great. Danny, on the other side, are we expecting clear-cut RB1 in the Broncos offense? That is Javonte Williams again. He had 30 touches in week 8. I think maybe part of that was a desperate measures. We must beat the Chiefs workload, but also I don't know why they wouldn't fully commit to Javonte Williams as their clear lead back. What do you think is going on in the Broncos backfield?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised because Jaleel McLaughlin has been a Sean Payton favorite from the first minute he was there, and did quite well, was very efficient as a pass catcher and a rusher when Javonte Williams was dinged up earlier this season. But yeah, I do think that this is fully Javonte Williams backfield, including everything inside the 10 and everything at the goal line. And that's pretty good. I have a pretty good feel for this game. I feel like, I just want to put it out there. Broncos are going to win. Broncos are going to beat the Bills.
So you're not concerned about the Bills offense, and yet you're coming here and saying the Broncos are going to beat them in Buffalo.
Bills aren't a real team. Let's just be honest.
I know
Russell Wilson leads the NFL in touchdown rate.
Yeah.
I checked that 8 times. He throws it like 25 times a game, and 4 of them are always long touchdowns to a guy you do not know who he is. You've never heard of him, and you tell your friends, oh, yeah, that guy's actually pretty good. I have him stashed. No, you don't. You've never heard of Brandon Johnson. Yeah. He's got 6 touchdowns this year. It might not be 6.
Yeah, what I'm saying is that Javonte Williams could really benefit from positive game script here. I really do think that.
Yeah, so the Bills, though, I got some pushback from Bills fans. They've got to get a real running game, which I think maybe they do think that's why they brought in Lenny, why they're prepared to all of a sudden give Lenny 18 touches, and it's going to be horribly inefficient, but it'll somehow make the offense better. I don't know if I've ever seen an elite team in recent times that, like, when they need a big run, non-Josh Allen division, like, they just can't get it.
They nothing.
Cannot get it.
I don't like the direction this podcast is going. A week or 2 ago, we had Denny saying Miami needs a run game. Now we have Pat saying the Bills need their run game.
I've been beating the Dolphins need the run game hobby horse for a while. Like, they desperately need the run game. I think I said on the pod, it's like a Swiss Army watch or knife. It's like too elaborate. Like, they need to. Well, you don't understand. It's friggin' amazing when these
the numbers would say
it's
healthy. Amazing.
Yeah, no, it's amazing when Devin Achane is healthy.
I thought you were talking about the Bills there. Well, that one's pretty good too.
Raheem Mostert is healthy too, which he never is. We need to run the ball in the AFC East. I don't know what's going on in the AFC East. Not even the Patriots.
Just one more stat here? Pro Javonte stat: Bills give up the highest yards before contact per attempt in the league.
Always rolls right off the tongue. It actually does. It actually does. The Chargers and Lions meet up in Los Angeles to reuse one of my own jokes for what will likely be a Lions home game, with Detroit getting 3 points on the road. Kyle, we've talked about how we think Dan Campbell is a reasonable man, but is it just cope to believe that the Lions' backfield split won't immediately go back to its pre-injury ways with David Montgomery returning? Can Jahmyr Gibbs see more work than he did before David Montgomery got hurt?
I think that's true, but I really wouldn't blame Campbell for using David Montgomery a lot. Montgomery was good. He wasn't great, but he was good when he was out there earlier in the season, and he was good on a lot of volume, which inherently makes it more difficult. He had a positive rush yards over expected. He had a top 10 or top 15, I believe, success rate on his carries. And it's generally in spots where I'm like, everyone knows he's running the football, right? The other team knew. I think they know. And doesn't matter. He was pretty successful. Now, do I think 1, coming back from injury, and 2, seeing the way Gibbs has played more recently, where he started the year didn't seem to quite fit into that traditional running back role. Started playing a lot better as of late. I still think it'll be a committee, but if we go out and see like 16 to 9 carries, something like that, wouldn't really surprise me. David Montgomery earned the right to see a lot of carries. I just think it's difficult that it's coming at the expense of a very expensive, both for fantasy, but also for the team, asset.
I do think the Lions could justifiably say, too, that they just want to spare Jahmyr Gibbs from those wear and tear type carries, that clearly he can be very effective with them. But I would kind of buy the argument that we shouldn't give someone as electric as Jahmyr Gibbs, like all this, like really like yeoman's work between the tackles.
It's like perfect for David Montgomery, too. He's the guy who you'd be like, yes, I look at him and I say, he's the wear and tear guy.
Yes. He practically screams it like, this guy's tires are getting like they might need to be replaced soon. But
put the chains on the tires, David. Going up the hill.
Teams should use that. Put the chains on the tires. Like they're up 10, 4 minute. The Eagles drive every time they're up 10 with 5 minutes left. Put the chains on the tires. That's a good phrase.
Let's just go.
Denny, we talked about this earlier in the week also, but are we losing hope in the Chargers passing attack to post elite fantasy numbers? I guess I could say without Mike Williams, even though I don't really think it's just about Mike Williams. He's injured. Josh Palmer's injured. Justin Herbert is playing with a broken finger still on his non-throwing hand. Have we lost hope in this as an elite fantasy unit?
Yes. And I kind of like this matchup.
There we go. I need a bet.
Yeah. Look, I hate to reference my funnel report thing again, but I will. The Lions are really, really one of the more extreme pass funnels in the league and have been all season. The Chargers, I think, are just going to completely abandon the running game, and I could see Herbert dropping back 40 plus times easily here. I think that really what I'm saying is that there's going to be 15 targets for Keenan Allen.
Let's go
here. And even a guy like Quentin Johnston might get in on the action just by accident, just by accident of pass volume. Here, for what it's worth, the Lions actually have been good limiting running backs in targets and receptions. So you're starting Eckler, but it's not a fantastic spot like traditionally if you're looking at the whole season. But it'll just be, it'll be a lot of dinking and dunking, like we talked about on the Tuesday show. The Herbert's downfield rate has dropped. His air yards per attempt has dropped with Mike Williams out. So unless Jalen Guyton can get going downfield, I don't think we have much here.
No is an acceptable answer. Do either of you have a take about Donovan Peoples-Jones joining the Lions offense?
Nah.
Let's just see it happen on the field.
It's not going to be good for
Josh Reynolds. Josh Reynolds kind of been dabbling with being a top 48 receiver. No upside, limited floor, but his usage was like top 48 level. They're just clearly not Marvin Jones away from the team for personal issues. They love to have that downfield element, and they're just clearly weren't entirely comfortable with what they had. They need those downfield shots for this offense to work, though. The Steelers are 3.5-point home favorites against the Packers, Denny. George Pickens, as we talked about on Galaxy Brains, is deleting accounts. He's not celebrating Deontay Johnson touchdowns. But do we expect anything to change with these Steelers pass catchers heading into Week 10?
No, I mean, unless George Pickens can get that second foot down on the touchdown, he's not going to get much. He has to hit that one for fantasy purposes. He has to hit that, or it's not happening, because Deontay Johnson is such a target vacuum. Now the splits for Pickens, the targets per route run splits for Pickens are like out of control with Deontay on the field. Last check, I think it's down to 13% targets per route run for George Pickens. That was up in the 24-25 range without Deontay. So he's a boom bust type guy, and Deontay just takes in everything and gets those like sweet, like smooth over targets, like just stuff in the middle of the field where, hey, you get easy. There's 3 easy PPR points. Bang, bang, bang. And
Ian Harditz posts, these are both worth 1.6 PPR points. And it's almost always about a Deontay Johnson catch and the hardest run you've ever seen. That's the type of catches Deontay Johnson gets that the smooth over ones.
Yep. And then Pickens doesn't get any of that. And until he does, things won't change.
George Pickens should consider making it not so difficult to target him, though. I will say that. to our friend George, who again has been very active on social media. Please check out this week's Galaxy Brains on the NFL and NBC YouTube page. Kyle, Steelers backfield. I've kind of just gotten bored of the situation, to be honest. I don't really write much or research much about it any given week anymore. Can you update the folks on Najee Harris versus Jalen Warren?
No, that's like a perfect summation because I looked and I was like, is there any patterns? Week 1, Jalen Warren saw 40% of the snaps, just around a third of the team's carries, and 35% of the routes. Last week, 42% of the snaps, no different. 37% of the carries, functionally no different. 30% of the routes, almost no different. It's the exact same thing every week. He's the change of pace back. He's not even like getting all of the 2-minute drill work, but he is targeted so often on a per route basis that even when he only gets a third of the routes, 40% of the routes, he earns so many targets that's still PPR RB3 value, but you need the longest run from 30 yards out for him to really get home. We know exactly what he is. You pinned it.
There we go. Denny, Packers receivers, another situation kind of like the Steelers backfield. Like, I guess stuff's going on here. I don't know if I really care about it. It seems like it never quite changes. What is going on in the Green Bay receiver corps?
Yeah, so Romeo Doubs is a guy who, if he doesn't, he's kind of touchdown dependent. Like if he doesn't catch that inside the 10 touchdown, then his stat line is gonna look pretty ugly. This Packers team, I think, with Jordan Love's pretty poor play, has tried to remain conservative. I mean, you look at the past few games against the Broncos, they were 10% under their expected drop back rate. And then against the Rams this past week in week 9, they were 6% under their expected drop back rate. I think we'll see more of that when they can. And I think that this is probably, this is an ugly, ugly game, real ugly environment. I kind of like Najee and Warren to see a ton of action here, a ton of touches. But yeah, so Christian Watson's boom bust because he's seeing a lot of air yards, but they're all just prayer yards, like on the perimeter, way downfield. I don't know what else to say except for like maybe Jaden Reed becomes somewhat viable in PPR. It's
this
tough.
Game screams Najee 17 for 45 and 2.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones, by the way, handled 24 touches seemingly without setback. He was limited in practice on Wednesday, but I think we expect the Packers offense needed a second element so badly. It seems like they finally have it with Aaron Jones being at least as healthy as he's been all year, if maybe not necessarily healthy. So I feel good about Aaron Jones as a low-end RB1.
Yeah.
The road-tripping Tennessee Titans are 1-point underdogs against the Bucs as pass funnel, Kyle. Am I insane to believe Will Levis could provide a QB1 spot start here? Why can't Will Levis just do what CJ Stroud did? I'm sure other than being half as good as CJ Stroud, why can't he do it? Look, even though he's looked very good in his first 2 starts.
Yeah, it is a really good spot. I mean, as you pointed out correctly, the Bucs very obvious pass funnel. They've faced a top 5 pass rate over expected. They're all the way down at 26 in EPA per dropback allowed. And even this week, their secondary is a little banged up with multiple starters missing practice on Wednesday. So we'll see if they end up making it through to the end of the week. But yeah, even with them, they're a pass funnel. Without them, they'll be much more obvious of a pass funnel. Just comes down to the talent. Like you said, I mean, I'm still skeptical, especially given how sort of easy, not that he made it look, it just was easy in his first 4 touchdown games. Some of those DeAndre Hopkins touchdowns were pretty much layups. He doesn't look bad. And if you're not bad and you're facing this Bucs team, I'll probably have you ranked as a top 15 quarterback.
I think QB 12.
Okay. I mean, it's not that far off from where I am. I'm probably still keeping him just outside of that QB1 range. But when the numbers come in at the end of the week, a guy who ranks QB 15 pre could finish as a top 5 guy. So yeah, he's a really strong streaming option. I guess the one thing I'm curious about is we're still not seeing any design carries, which he's a really good athlete. So I'll be curious if we see that. It's not necessary though in this matchup.
By the way, Denny, we owe him a debt of gratitude where he saw the Bucs pass funnel. He's like, let's get this trending, folks. And then even like the Texans saw, like, man, maybe we should just only pass against the Bucs.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Oh, hey, me and Bobby Slow, we talk twice a week. So
PFF Bobby and Denny are the best of friends. Denny on the other side here, Bucs receiver check-in. Seems like a pretty static situation. Trey Palmer is a little involved. Mike Evans scoring enough touchdowns to kind of stay on the high-end wide receiver 2 mix. Seemingly no ceiling whatsoever anymore for Chris Godwin.
No.
Any change in the status quo with the Bucs wideouts?
No, I mean, Mike Evans is dominating air yards in this offense. He's very clearly Baker Mayfield's 1A on pretty much every play. His first read targets have climbed to one of the highest in the league. So I do think that you're starting him confidently. You're starting Chris Godwin hoping for the Bucs to remain pretty pass heavy, because their run game has been so bad. They've actually had to turn to the pass. I'm sure that's not what they want. They're 3% over their expected dropback rate on the season. They've been over their expected dropback rate in in 6 of the past 7 games. And then last week was the only exception. So I think it's pretty much standard. Like, you know what you're getting with this. Evans does have, I think, tremendous upside in this game if it breaks like we want it to. Like if the Titans really push things, if the Titans score some points, if they're a little bit aggressive, and we saw them be a little bit aggressive last week against the Steelers. If we get that, then Baker has to drop back more. I think Evans can really roast this exploitable Tennessee secondary.
Do either of you have any Rachaad White or Derrick Henry stats burning a hole in your pocket? I kind of feel like it's a good week for Derrick Henry, even though it's a tough Bucs run defense. Just if the Titans have any passing success, there's gonna be drives to finish. It'll be Derrick Henry. So I have
a related stat. Just one, like I said, burn a hole in my pocket. Guys with as many carries inside the 5 as Derrick Henry include Justice Hill, Joshua Kelly, Anthony Richardson, who hasn't played in weeks, Justin Herbert, not much of a running quarterback, Tyson Bagent, undrafted free agent who's only started, I think, 3 games. And of course, Andrew Beck, fullback for the Houston Texans. But to your point is that pass funnel, run funnel, we just need the offense to get him there. If they could do it running, that'd be great. But if they can do it passing, the problem is they don't get him carries where he can guarantee himself 6 points. I don't care if they get there passing. Give it to him at the end zone. He's getting in. Actually not a bad spot, even if they are, quote, like pass funnel, which they are.
Totally agree. Yeah, just the overall offensive environment improving even marginally.
Yes.
Would be extremely good news for Derrick Henry. The Arizona Cardinals welcome back Kyler Murray as 2-point home underdogs against the fighting Arthur Smith, Denny Carter. We will get to Kyler in a second. But Denny, what is the latest in the never-ending Bijan is how he says his name now, according to you? I'm actually been meaning to look into this. And Tyler Algier saga. What's the latest? And again, check out Galaxy Brains. We may or may not have talked about Arthur Smith for 45 minutes.
All right. Well, here's what you have going for you. Bijan Robinson leads the NFL in running back pass routes. Okay. So what do you want? What else do you want? Okay. would it be nice if he were targeted on those routes? It would. But
red zone carries. We want red zone carries. Arthur, over here. Red zone carries.
You can grow the mustache back if they start targeting him on those.
And so, but yeah, Tyler Algier still really the clear cut option inside the 10-yard line, which is so important. It's the very high value touches in that part of the field. And Arthur Smith this week, okay, even though he shaved his mustache, we have to look into whether that means that that Robinson is going to see more action.
We don't need to, Denny. We know.
We do know.
He did say, Algier did say, or sorry, Arthur Smith did say, look, Tyler Algier is a great short yardage and goal line back, and we're going to continue to use him that way. So I don't think that like Algier is going to go away. And this matchup screams like 20% under expected pass rate for the Falcons. And so I could see, hey, look, this could definitely happen. Falcons run the ball a ton. It's 12 or 15 carries for Algier, 12 to 15 carries for Robinson.
Man, oh man, just make it stop. I want off this ride. Make it stop.
Yeah, it's not going to be there. I don't think there is any universe where suddenly Algier just finds himself on the bench. Like he's going to get these high value touches.
Danny, I don't know if you heard, he shaved the mustache.
He did, and that could be very important. Like
that is capitulation if I have ever seen it. Shaving the mustache. That's like getting right with God. That's just he's trying to do it, getting right with the universe. He doesn't know who he's getting right with. He's just trying to get right with some force. And shaving the mustache, that's a white flag if I've ever seen one. What kind of Cardinals offensive approach are we expecting in Kyler Murray's 2023 debut? James Conner also hopefully returning. We don't entirely know his status yet, though. What are we expecting from the Cardinals this weekend?
Yeah, I would expect probably a more balanced approach, given that last week they just sacrificial lambed Clayton Tune because Kyler had been practicing in full for 2 weeks, but I think it was on the road, but it was a matchup against the Browns defense that was brutal. Let's not bring Kyler Murray back to get sacked 6 times by Myles Garrett. I still think they'll probably make an effort to protect him. I've seen, and it's definitely true that they run a lot more under center than we've ever seen Kyler, both in college and the NFL, do before. I dug into the stats. He's been better under center than he has been out of shotgun. I think that's probably a selection bias thing. You only use him under center when you know it's a good spot. But the fact that he hasn't struggled with it doesn't make me concerned that he can't handle a change in the offense. And I've mentioned this earlier, but Josh Dobbs is getting a lot of design carries on this team. So maybe we don't see that his very first game back. But this team has been very successful in designing runs for their quarterbacks, and they've done it third most in the NFL. So I feel good. Maybe it doesn't happen this week, but I do feel good that at some point they will really start to use Kyler in a way that's conducive to fantasy points.
Kyler, just the horizontal raid, kill it with garlic, kill it with fire, kill it with anything. End the horizontal raid. This era of football must be over, whatever you do this season. Drake London, by the way, hopefully returning for this game. Do you guys feel comfortable calling him a wide receiver too, or probably not?
Like I said, I anticipate this being such a run-heavy game for the Falcons that, I mean, he's going to have to do it on like 5 targets. That's a
60% target share, though. Think about that.
I know.
What about your points per target share league?
Didn't need to hear that. Did not need to hear that. But yeah, we don't even know if he's returning for sure. And Art wants another week. He wants one more week of Kadero Hodge. We need to see what Hodge has. Everyone's mad. I hear groaning. Kadero, do you know what Kadero Hodge has?
Listen,
I don't.
Hodge is legit. Hodge is legit, guys. Look, he was their most targeted pass catcher last week with London out. So London is, I think, shaping up to play. But just keep an eye on Hodge. Hodge could be a little bit interesting for deep league purposes.
Make it stop. Just make it stop. Whatever you do, Arthur, please. Seattle Seahawks, they're licking their Ravens' wounds as 6.5-point home favorites against the slinging Sam Howell's Kyle Dvorchak. Is it fair to call this a do-or-die game for the Seahawks' struggling passing attack? If they can't get home against this really bad Commanders defense, I'm going to ask some serious questions.
Yeah, I think it's a perfectly fine thing to say that if they cannot beat this Commanders defense, we have big problems. I generally have faith that they will, though. You look at this recent stretch of undoubtedly like poor performances from the offense, from Geno Smith, and in part it's because they faced the 2 best defenses in the NFL by EPA per play over that stretch, Baltimore and Cleveland, then another not bad defense, I believe, in the Bengals. So, and the one time they faced Arizona, we got over 9 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception from Geno Smith. It was a good game all around, and they weren't pushed. They didn't need to try and score that much. And he still had a usable week, like his only usable week in the past 4 weeks. So I think once they finally get out of this just murderer's row of defenses they've faced where like a top 12 defense, like that's a win, and they didn't do that well against them. I think once they get out of this murderer's row of defenses this week, things should turn around for them because this will be the least talented defense they've faced all year. I mean, it's probably the least talented defense now after trading all of their pass rushers in the NFL.
Real quick, they have the Commanders this week, the Rams next week, then the 49ers, the Cowboys on the road, and then the 49ers on the road.
Good grief.
Yeah, Geno is thinking about maybe faking an injury.
Get him in while you can, Geno, because you're not going to be getting him in good fantasy scores that stretch. That's a rough stretch.
Wow, this team could really just fold.
They're going to be big time. And part of that's because they're folding in their backfield. What is going on with the Seahawks backfield? Why is Kenneth Walker getting out-snapped 2 weeks in a row? And he's still out touching Zach Charbonnet. I mean, I guess we have questions about Ken Walker's health, maybe, but what the heck is going on in this backfield?
Yeah, I mean,
what in the heck?
Yes, we're watching our language today for the kids. Huge audience of kids. So over the past 2 weeks,
what the freak is going on? See, all right, so I'm gonna let my emotion out a little bit.
As long as you do it in a healthy, clean way. Ken Walker has 17 carries to 9 carries for Charbonnet over the past 2 games. Charbonnet has been way more efficient, by the way, just for whatever that's worth. Charbonnet has run 40 routes to only 24 routes for Walker over those 2 games. But last week is tough to interpret because it was a blowout with like 3 minutes to go in the first quarter. So I don't really know if we can look at backfield distribution and be like, oh yes, we learned so much about how this team will use their running backs. I do think it's clear that Charbonnet has piqued the interest of Pete Carroll.
He's Charbonnet curious for sure.
He is. Yes. He's more and more curious as the season wears on. He wants to see what it's like to have Charbonnet getting touches in the backfield. And so I that's not good. Not good for Walker. I mean, that's all I know. So, you can start Walker, I guess, but wow, it has gotten really lots of variance all of a sudden with Kenneth Walker.
Yeah, very, very variables, I believe you mean, or do you mean variant?
It was lots of variance. I mean, suddenly you have a guy who could literally score you like 2 PPR points.
Oh, variance. I thought you were saying variant.
Oh.
Well, it's like, I think it means variable.
No. Yeah, like week 4, we were like, all right, where's my 20 carries, 108 yards, and 2 touchdowns? Right. Bring them up. It's the second quarter already. And now, like, you just can't lock that in.
No, you cannot. Kyle, any reason to expect things to change with the Commanders' approach? As pass heavy as it gets, 45 attempts basically baked in for Sam Howell. Curtis Samuel seems like he's probably returning from his toe injury. Back-to-back practices on Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, when Curtis Samuel was dealing with the toe, but playing, they were already scaling his routes back a bit, and that's what you need from Jahan Dotson, because when Curtis Samuel's out there, he was just clearly earning targets at a significantly higher clip than Dotson, and for what you drafted Dotson, that's just not good enough. And then, once Samuel was banged up and then eventually out, Dotson all of a sudden starts blowing up. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. So if he comes back, I still think maybe he's playable this week. That is Jahan Dotson. But I'd be concerned and I'd be looking for ways out.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. I've got him currently like around wide receiver 40. I had him higher before Curtis Samuel was practicing, though. It might have peaked with Jahan Dotson yesterday.
Yeah.
Seahawks, good matchup for slot receivers. That's all I'll say.
All right. Is that a Jamison Crowder tweet? What was that?
Well, it could be. It should be Curtis Samuel if he plays.
Oh, yeah.
If he doesn't play, then yes, then I think it is Jamison Crowder's season. Also, it's Logan Thomas' season. He's in the Travis Kelce role. No one wants to talk about it.
No one will talk about it in the media. There's a blackout on Logan Thomas coverage. And even by NBC, it's really rather shameful. The New York Jets are the narrowest of road favorites against the resurgent Raiders, Kyle. The line has been changing, so maybe they're underdogs by now. We liked what we saw from the silver and black last week, but can anyone besides Josh Jacobs get numbers against this ferocious Jets defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's 29% target share for Devontae Adams.
Next question.
I mean, it is tough. It's tough. When you look at this season, the lowest big-time throw rate per PFF, Jimmy Garoppolo. Oh, we're getting an upgrade. We go to Aiden O'Connell, second to last. Like, this offense just doesn't have an option to create big plays as far as the quarterback is concerned. And that's going to be tough for the wide receivers. So I still think at worst, they're like de facto PPR scams. They've been downgraded from really good players, both Jacoby and Devontae, to like, you take what you can get with the PPR points these days, in the same way that on the other side of the ball, Garrett Wilson sees every single target. They're mostly terrible. We're probably getting that, but they see every single target. In this case, it's split between 2 guys in Devontae, who's again seems to be out targeting Jacoby. We maybe settled there a little bit, back to the first 5 weeks norm, but we're going to have some bad games from these guys. It just with the way Aiden O'Connell is likely to play.
Well, especially against this Jets defense.
Yeah, of course.
This Jets secondary is so good. And the Raiders had a 33% neutral pass rate last week against the Giants. Okay. So honestly, like, I don't think it matters what happens in this game. Josh Jacobs is seeing 25 touches.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's just nothing interim coaches love more than that. I mean,
they love it.
26 carries out the gate for Josh Jacobs under Antonio Pierce. Zero reason to expect that to change. And with Aiden O'Connell, too, it is interesting. We're going to get back-to-back non-representative game scripts because they boat raced the Giants and they're not facing this really tough defense. I feel like we won't really know who Aiden O'Connell is.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, can I ask you guys where you have Devontae Adams ranked?
I dropped him out of the top 12 for probably the first time in my entire career this week. I think I have him as the wide receiver 14. What about you, Kyle Dvorchak?
Yeah, you had to be doing rankings in like 2017 to have had, maybe even like 2016 or something, to have had him as not like the last time you would have had him as a non-wide receiver one. I have mine pulled up here. He is 12, so right on the board.
I'm the wide receiver 15. I had him higher too. That's one I was really struggling with as I went through the week and updated my ranks. It is even against the Jets, even with Aiden O'Connell, you kind of always have to bake in the possibility of Devonta Adams takeover time, but the odds of that have just been going down.
I don't know, guys. I would have 15 sounds right-ish to me. I mean, I wouldn't even quibble with like wide receiver 18 or 20.
Denny, lay out how bad Zach Wilson is and has been and will continue to be.
Get him, Denny. Go.
Yeah, why did you pick me to get this question? I am a Zach Wilson supporter from day one. No, he's been awful, and I'm so glad that everybody's on board now.
They're back.
You know, I feel like for a while it was like, you never know. Like he was good in college, so he could be good in the pros. We
had a good quarter against the Chiefs once.
Yeah. So we just don't know. We just don't have enough information. And now everybody seems to have sufficient information on whether Zach Wilson is bad. Look, he's second to last in completion rate over expected. By the way, Matthew Stafford is dead last in completion rate over expected.
He has been tanking.
He's a terrible. No one's
really tanking. He has been tanking so hard to the point where like Sean McVay's like just give Royce Freeman the ball. I don't care.
I mean, yeah, Stafford. Forget the injury. He's been awful from the first snap of the season until he got hurt. Anyway,
he's looking like retirement. He's looking like retirement season.
He was that way last year too, even though like the fantasy stats were there for someone like Kupp, the efficiency for Stafford completely bottomed out. And we're approaching that this year. We're already there with this. Complete
retirement season. Sorry, you continue.
So yeah, if you look at like Zach Wilson, some of the garbage time stuff has helped him have like reasonably okay stat lines. 263 yards last week against the Chargers, but that was like 25 checkdowns in the second half. His ADOT last week against the Chargers was 7.5. Against the Giants the previous week it was 8. And then it was back to 7.5 against the Eagles. It was 6.6 against Denver. This is a guy who cannot and will not go downfield, and for good reason. He's really inaccurate. He's a really bad thrower downfield, and so that's good. Now, here's something we talked about on Tuesday's show. The Jets are 5% over their expected dropback rate over the past 3 games. What is that about? Why? Like I don't
support our quarterback. You have a problem with that?
I'm not going to be a Monday morning talking head and say, why didn't they just give it to Breece Hall when they were down 24 points in the fourth quarter? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is maybe be a little more run heavy before things get out of control is my point.
I thought they even need to get Dalvin Cook more, the least efficient guy in the entire league. Okay. Dalvin Cook should be taking some touches over.
You've been corrupted.
No. You want a Dalvin Cook carry, or do you want Zach Wilson throwing it over Randall Cobb's head? I mean, come on.
Look, the average Zach Wilson sack, which happens on 48% of his dropbacks, if I'm running the numbers correctly, is still losing fewer yards than the average Dalvin Cook blown up 8 yards into the backfield.
Get out of town. They need to. The Dallas Cowboys are 3-score favorites against the New York Giants. Mega yikes, Denny Carter. Does this mean another complete and total shutdown of the Cowboys offense this Sunday?
It's going to be scary. It's going to be scary. I will say, like, I don't know what to tell people about, because they're, oh God, like I'm going to get 100 yards from Dak Prescott before he's rested in the second quarter. You know, it feels like that sort of game. For some reason, Tommy DeVito's warming up for the Cowboys. I'm just very, very confused. Is this legal? Oh man, I mean, it's going to be really ugly. So, you know, like with a guy like CeeDee Lamb, obviously you're just throwing him in there. With Tony Pollard, there's no guarantee of anything here. The Giants are giving up the most yards before contact per attempt, and I don't have any confidence in Tony Pollard getting there this week. So
we're on pace for an all-time Rico Dowdle 3-score game.
Yeah, that, and also, hey, I have a controversial take here. I'm gonna stand by it. You start the Cowboys defense. You do get the Cowboys defense out there against Danny DeVito.
as Kyle knows, he loves him. And Throw Mama from the Train, the classic Danny DeVito film, is what is currently happening to Tommy DeVito. Kyle, what's the risk the Giants don't even feature Saquon this week? Same problem. Like, should they even use up what limited touches he has left in his NFL career? Like, will they bother with these cannon fodder Saquon Barkley touches, or are they just kind of are the Giants even going to try this week? Is kind of
I mean, they're going to try. I don't know. I think I remember the Bucs pulling their starters in week 18 when they were trying to get Jameis Winston. Or back then it was week 17. If they were trying to get Jameis Winston, it's one of the only times in my life I can remember a team truly having a plan to not try and win a football game. Obviously, this team will not win this football game, but they're going to try. And if they cared about the long-term health or long-term utility health of Saquon Barkley, sure, they probably wouldn't play him. They would have paid him earlier in the year. So they do not care, obviously, at least the extent that he does. So no, he's going to get a lot of care. I mean, he's going to get so many carries. We saw that first. I almost said it again, Danny DeVito. So the first Tommy DeVito start, actually he came in this game, but man, he's all they have. He is all they have. They don't have a talented receiving core. They obviously don't have a talented quarterback. They don't have a talented line. They don't have talented tight end.
Remember this guy? You guys remember?
No, he's on IR.
No, he's on IR.
He's on IR. Oh my lord!
It's over.
Don't worry. I made that mistake talking about Tyrod Taylor. I was if Tyrod Taylor plays, and they're no, he's not. He's on IR. So yeah, this team is. I mean, this team is it the least talented team we've ever seen?
It's close. There have been teams that have been in even worse situations without a Saquon, though. Saquon prevents them from being the least talented offense. I think
so. I don't know. Man.
I do. I can't think off the top of my head. There have been some teams that have been this bad without a Saquon, so I can't quite go there.
You know what we can bank on? We can bank on 4 to 5 targets for Daniel Bellinger at tight end.
Yeah. Oh man, can we ever?
Pat, you like that one?
Yeah, let's get that Daniel Bellinger in cash? Question mark.
If he's 2,500, you better believe it.
He's probably 1,500. I didn't even know they priced tight ends.
You actually get rebated.
You do get that joke. You get some crowns, some DK crowns. You put Daniel Bellinger in your lineup. So real good stuff. That brings the slate to an end. The record short preview show. We have 4 teams on bye, I think. 4 really good teams on bye, not counting the Rams. No Eagles, no Chiefs, no Dolphins this week. Makes fantasy football look a lot different. But we hope we broke down the slate in satisfactory fashion. So much good stuff on the website. Denny's funnel thing, as we call it. Denny's regression files. Kyle's 32 facts. Kyle's start sit. My rankings. Our podcasts. Our Galaxy Brains. So check it all out. Keep it locked. Lots of updates. We have no idea what's going on with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, so on and so forth. James Conner. A lot of big names. They're going to come down to the wire this week. So for Denny Carter, for Kyle Dvorchak, I'm Patrick Daugherty. Thank you for listening. We will be back later.